We're going to call to order tonight, April 2nd, 2026 Planning Commission meeting. We're going to begin with roll call. Commissioner Kozicki. Here. Commissioner Zachman.
Here.
And Commissioner Scherber.
Here. And
Commissioner Drummond is here as well. At this point in time, I'd like to invite all of you to stand and say the Pledge of Allegiance with us. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation. We're going to call to order tonight, April 2nd, 2026. Got a little fun background noise there. All right, and at this point in time, does staff or any of the fellow commissioners have any changes to tonight's agenda?
Staff has no changes.
Okay, so I will make a motion to approve tonight's agenda.
Second.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Okay, next up is open forum. This is an opportunity to be heard or address the commission on an issue that's not on tonight's agenda. So if there's anyone who has an issue that they just want to bring to the commission's attention, you can approach because I don't think we have any public comment cards for that, do we? No. Is there anyone? No. Okay. Then we will move on to the minutes from our meeting, which took place in February, because there was no March meeting. Do you guys have an opportunity? Any comments regarding those minutes? Okay. Does anyone want to make a motion to approve the minutes from the February 2026 meeting?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
Perfect.
I'll second.
All right, all those in favor, say aye. Aye. And anyone opposed? Okay, and that takes us right to our fullest section, which is all of our new business. So we've got 6 items on the agenda tonight, and I believe they are all a public comment opportunity. And so we will, before we do, I just want to give a very warm welcome to Commissioner Scherber. This is he's joining us on the commission as of this month. And so I just want to welcome him and give him an opportunity to introduce himself or address everybody.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, as she said, my name's Aiden Scherber. Grown up in Corcoran most of my life, and I'm excited to be here, be a part of helping shape the community and give insight into how the city continues to develop.
Thank you. We're excited to have you, and we're grateful for your willingness to volunteer and serve in this way. Okay, now we're going to move into the new business, and we'll begin with the site plan amendment and variances for landscaping for the Red Barn Pet Retreat, and I think that is you, Kendra, right? Thank you.
Thank you. This is an application for 2 variances and an administrative site plan approval. Some background, the applicant received approval of the sketch plan back in 2022. And then in 2023, this property received a comprehensive plan amendment, a rezoning, a preliminary plat, and a site plan to allow construction of the Red Barn Pet Retreat. And there were a number of conditions as part of that approval. One of those, which was talked about at Planning Commission and at Council, was the need for a revised compliant landscape plan. This is in the Northeast District, so if you recall, we have additional landscape standards beyond the base standards in the zoning ordinance. The Northeast District has additional standards. Final plat and development contract and a variance to allow construction prior to availability of city utilities was approved in '24. And the building was constructed, and then last spring, we sent a landscape inspection letter. We send this letter to everybody who gets a development approval to remind them to plant the landscaping because we need to inspect that to start the warranty period and reduce the letter of credit that the city holds. So this is a courtesy that goes to everyone, not just this particular landowner. But upon receipt, the landowner said he was ready for inspections. In fact, he needed to still submit a compliant landscape plan. We did work with him and get a compliant landscape plan that was approved on June 30th, 2025. When he asked us to do an inspection, we did that in August and found that the plan did not match, the build condition did not match the approved plan. And so to resolve this issue, the applicant was given a number of options. This option is to request a variance to allow the built landscaping to be accepted in lieu of a compliant landscape plan. Again, the Northeast District, one of the goals is to provide sustainable and environmentally friendly building and site design techniques. When we adopted the Northeast District, the city wanted to use it sort of as a test case for some of these native plantings, sort of xeriscape types of landscape, and other sustainable building components. And so we have requirements and incentives in that district that are above and beyond the standard zoning requirements. One of those things is to require landscape plantings to be selected from a list of preferred trees and shrubs, primarily native, but some materials that are, because of a variety of reasons, becoming native-like because of changing climate conditions. And so, again, in this case, the request is in front of you. The applicant had an approved compliant landscape plan approved by the city. They planted something different, and the two variances are for the use of rock mulch, where wood-based or wood mulch is required, and to allow non-native hydrangeas to count towards the landscape requirements where they are not on the approved species list. And if one or both of those variances are approved, we would be able to administratively approve a site plan amendment to allow those changes. These were in your packet. Very hard to read on the screen, I acknowledge, but in terms of the number of trees, the point of this is the number of plantings is generally consistent with what was approved. It was just that instead of using the wood mulch, they've used rock mulch next to the parking lots and buildings, and swapped out the approved landscaping with hydrangeas sort of along the parking lot. And so the reason there's two parts to this. We have our engineering design standards, which are part of our zoning ordinance, and so compliance with those is required for any development. And so rock mulch is not permitted. The wood mulch is required across the city. So this is true outside of the Northeast District as well. And regardless of the type of development, so for Corcoran Business Park, which recently came in 500,000 square feet of industrial large trucks, they're also doing wood mulch. And the U of M Extension Service encourages wood mulch because it retains moisture, so we're not using drinking water to water plants as much, reduces the heat island effect, suppresses weeds, prevents erosion, and it kind of feeds the plants as it breaks down. Rock mulch can kind of cook those plants and provides no benefit. That's why the city encourages the rock mulch. Secondly, the second variance is to allow these non-native plants in the Northeast District. And noted in the staff report, hydrangeas are fine to plant as a flower. You can plant those on your site. Many people do, but it can't be used to meet the minimum landscape requirements. Those need to be of the native species. So even in the Northeast District, you can have non-native species, you just can't use them to meet your minimum planting requirements. And in this case, this is a parking lot, so they're intended to screen the headlights, and the hydrangeas don't have the same kind of screening that maybe some other hedge-type plants or evergreen plants might have. But again, if the variance were not approved, the hydrangeas could stay. You would just need to plant additional landscaping in that area to screen the headlights. So when we review a variance, this is the item that the city has the most discretion on of all land use applications, because the burden of proof is on the applicant to show that they meet these variance standards. Practical difficulties, which is kind of a three-pronged approach. Is it reasonable? Is it unique to this property? And typically, uniqueness is based on a physical site constraint. And is it consistent with the essential character? And we have 6 standards, or 6 items in the code. 1 through 5 are standards, and 6 says if you do approve a variance, you can impose conditions to address the impact of the variance. And you must meet all of the variance standards. If you fail to meet one of them, then the variance should be denied. Staff finds that neither of the variances meet all of these standards. There is no physical reason, there's no unique site constraint that says wood chips can't be provided or that native plants can't be provided, in our opinion. But we did, in the findings of fact, try to give pros and cons for the commission of the different variances. And so a little bit different tonight, we did not provide the two resolutions. We felt like those findings are generally in the staff report, but there were some where we just really struggled and couldn't find findings to approve. And so if the commission finds that the application does meet the variance standards, they should provide some more direction on those findings of fact. You should review each of these variances separately, so maybe start with the wood mulch and then move on to the non-native species. You have a number of options. You could move to deny both variances due to the findings in the staff report that the variance standards have not been met. You could move to recommend approval of both variances. Again, in that case, you would need to provide some supplemental findings to support the finding that all standards have been met. Or you could approve one and then approve the other, or deny the other. As I mentioned at the beginning, if one or more of the variances are approved by the city council, then staff would administratively approve a site plan amendment consistent with that approval. And so with that, Madam Chair, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you so much. Does anybody have any initial questions for Kendra? Otherwise, she's available throughout the discussion as well, so thank you, Kendra. At this point in time, we'll open, actually the applicant, I don't see him either, but, okay. So typically, we would give the applicant an opportunity to just address the commission and answer any questions. But since the applicant isn't here, we'll move on to the public comment opportunity. Is there any public comment cards?
Not for this item.
Not for this item, okay. However, we don't want you to miss the opportunity if that is why you came. So if you didn't have the opportunity to fill out a comment card, but you would still like to make public comment regarding these two variances and site plan amendment for Red Barn Pet Retreat, we'll give you the opportunity to come up. Yep, and if you want to just come on up and then state your name and address for the record, that'd be great. Thank you so much. And if you do have any questions, we'll save them and questions would get answered at the end.
I have a question more than a comment. Mike Cannon, 10390 Elm Lane. My back of my house faces this property. And I guess my question is, did the owner ever give any reason for, I mean, that seems pretty clear. The standards seem pretty clear for, and maybe that's not important, but otherwise it doesn't really make any difference to me. I understand, you know, the city has to set standards for this kind of stuff, and you have to hold people accountable. But I'm just wondering why, if there's been any discussions and why the owner decided to do something he shouldn't have.
We will address the question as soon as the public comment opportunity is closed. Thank you
Okay.
so much.
Yeah.
Appreciate it. Anybody else? Okay, then I will make a motion to close the public hearing.
So it was public comment.
Sorry, public comment. I'm using the wrong word.
Right into the discussion, you don't need a motion.
Oh, we don't need
Yeah,
a motion.
Only for public hearings, and that one was just a public comment.
Public comment.
Yep.
Thanks. Okay, so to answer your question, well, Kendra could probably answer it the best, so I'm going to ask her if she'd be willing to answer that question.
How I would answer it is to say that the applicant provided a narrative in the packet with his reasoning, and happy to share that with you. It's a couple pages. I don't know that I want to read that, but he did provide some reasoning on pages 18 and 23 of the packet.
So the packet that she's referring to is we are given materials ahead of the meeting that provides they give an overview during their staff report, but we get a bunch of information that is also available to the public. So you can find it two places. It's in the binder on the black cart there. And then also if you go online to our government and go to Planning Commission, there'll be agenda packet in there. And so pages 18 and 23 would have information that the applicant submitted on reasons. So they would kind of give his perspective, if that's what you're looking for to answer that question.
Okay, so that's what I have to go if I want to answer my question.
Or we can email it to you, if you'd like to give us your email address, but.
It's just, it's the, I guess that it feels the fairest to give the applicant the opportunity to explain his reasons in his own words. And so because he's not here tonight, those are the pieces of paper on which he submitted. Okay, so let's take it, both items, since we don't need to do the site plan amendment, we're just looking at the mulch standard. And so we can take a look at that one first, unless someone is ready to make a motion.
I just have some comments on the mulch versus the rocks. And I think that there is some room for the planning commission to find that maybe because of the type of business that rocks in the area where they put them would be okay, because dogs come out of the car, they want to go there, their owner wants them to go before they go into the building. The mulch probably absorbs it more, and maybe as the rocks it percolates down. I'm just thinking because of the type of business, the rocks in the area by the parking lot may be acceptable, but then hardwood mulch in other areas of landscape would be preferred.
The only caution that I have with that would be the variance runs with the land, and the use could change, but they would still have that right regardless of what business goes in after this. So just something to keep in mind during the analysis.
Yeah. I guess as far as I'm concerned, I think it would be okay for them to leave the rocks around the parking lot area. As far as the non-native plants, especially as far as the screening of headlights, I don't think the hydrangeas would do it. And it didn't look like there was really room in that planting area to plant an additional screen along with the hydrangeas. So that one I would probably not, that one would probably, I wouldn't approve the variance. But I think I would approve the variance for the rock rather than the hardwood.
Okay,
I
go
have
ahead.
some
Yep,
questions.
absolutely.
Can you help define maybe like practical difficulty in meeting that threshold versus like maybe difficulty in use? Like would does that question make sense? Like there's the practical difficulty that needs to be met, but then is the fact that a dog presumably would be on the mulch, is that a practical difficulty or is that a functional difficulty?
Yeah, a practical difficulty is a three-pronged test. So you need to find that the request is reasonable, that the way they want to use it is reasonable, but can't do it under the rules of the ordinance, which I think might be what the commissioner is getting at. But secondly, you have to find that the landowner's problem is due to circumstances unique to the property, not caused by the landowner. Again, it's the property, not the business. To that end, it relates to the physical characteristics of the particular piece of property and not the personal characteristics or preferences of a landowner. And so the example I put in the staff report is typically this is met by topography. There's a big tree that we want to avoid. There's a very steep hill that we can't cut into. And then the third part of that practical difficulty test is that if the variance is granted, it won't alter the essential character of the neighborhood, meaning it won't be out of scale, out of place, or inconsistent. And so one could find that you need two of those, but not the third. And if you don't meet all three, you do not meet the practical difficulty. And that's the challenge, I think, the uniqueness factor.
Did if I understood this correctly, I mean it was pretty clear from City Council on what was to be changed and ultimately done as a piece of this property for the business, and then here we are. I think you could, to Kendra's point, meet maybe one or possibly two, but not all three.
Yeah,
Seemingly.
I'd agree. I think although I see the benefit and the why he would like to use the rock, but I think the second point that Kendra brought up was how it was caused, if it was by the landowner. And if I'm understanding, the landscape plan was approved June 30th, if that's correct. And then there was an invoice in the packet from the landscape company that lists the rock from September 2025. So it seems as though that rock was added on after the approval of the original plan. So it almost feels like that was a choice versus an accident. But.
Sure. I think that I appreciate the consideration for the difference in the potentially business, but it doesn't fit the land. So all of that to say, I would make a motion to deny both of the variances.
I'll second.
Is there any additional discussion that needs to take place?
Could we put in a recommendation for a zoning ordinance change?
So, it is possible for ordinances to be reviewed.
So I would say the recommendations for the variance, but I think that's a fair critique that could go back to the applicant, just that I don't think it would be the official recommendation of the commission. Yeah.
And while it is painful to make a recommendation that would require money having been spent to then be redone, I think in this instance, the design standards for the Northeast District, it is an attempt to course correct what has been done, which is that easiest isn't always what's best in the long run for the environment. And so I think in this instance, it was made clear prior to, and so we need to sort of maintain the standards. So all those in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
And anyone opposed? Okay. And so then you guys will write up a resolution then based on
Yeah,
that.
I think your
Sure.
implied motion was based on the findings in the staff report.
Yes, we would agree. Okay, so now we're gonna move on to the next item of business, which is the Ulfers Garage conditional use permit.
Thank you, Madam
Dwight?
Chair.
All right.
Yeah, so item 6B is the public hearing for Ulfers Garage conditional use permit. This is a request from John Ulfers, who would like to construct an accessory building on his property that would exceed the allowed accessory structure side wall height limit of 10 feet in the side yard. So a quick overview of the property. The subject property is located at 22085 Oakdale Drive. It is 4.09 acres in size and zoned rural residential and guided for rural/ag residential uses. The surrounding properties of the subject property are also zoned rural residential and guided for that rural and ag residential as well. They're going through some of the city's natural resources inventories. There aren't any ecologically significant natural areas on the site. However, the 2040 natural resource inventory areas map identifies a stream along the east side of the property, but the proposed structure is not located near that stream, so it's not a concern with this application. And then this property is located outside of the new zone. So accessory structures in the rural residential district are required to meet a minimum setback distance of 50 feet from the front property line, 20 feet from the side property lines, and 15 feet from the rear property lines. The proposed shop is closest to the western property line and is setback at 20.3 feet from that property line. So it meets that side setback requirement as well as all of the other setback requirements. Properties of this size are allowed to have a cumulative accessory structure footprint of 2,156 square feet. This doesn't include the first 1,000 square feet of attached accessory structure space. So the subject property currently contains an attached garage that's less than 1,000 square feet, so that's not included in that footprint calculation. The applicant is proposing a 2,156 square foot structure, which would be allowed for a property of this size. The proposed structure would be constructed in the side yard and would have sidewalls that have a height of 16 feet, where a maximum height of 10 feet is allowed. Within the city code, property owners are allowed to exceed this limit through a conditional use permit, which is what the applicant is applying for tonight. And the height of the structure itself is 22 feet and does not exceed the 35-foot height limit for the rural residential district. The proposed structure would be constructed with LP, SmartSide, and gapped timberline HDZ shingles. These materials are allowed as materials for accessory structures, and within the code, accessory structures are required to have eaves and overhangs that are at least 12 inches in length, and the proposed structure has eaves and overhangs that exceed that 12 inches on all sides. There are no architectural interest requirements for accessory structures in the city code, but if the commission finds that the size of the structure may not meet all of the conditional use permit criteria, they may impose additional architectural treatments and design enhancements to address the scale and size to meet all of the criteria of the conditional use permit. Again, there are no landscaping requirements for accessory structures, but similar to the architectural interest, we've seen with previous approvals of some of the more larger accessory structures, there have been landscaping requirements as a mitigation measure from the potential visual impact onto adjacent properties. So if the Planning Commission believes that all the criteria for the conditional use permit are not met, they may impose landscaping standards to address that and ensure that the structure is not injurious to the use and enjoyment of other properties in the immediate vicinity. The proposed plan is showing grading and sloping that would allow water to drain away from the proposed structure. However, the grades show a 3-to-1 slope, which is steeper than what's allowed by city policy. So a condition of approval would require these grades to be revised to a 4-to-1 slope, which would allow for lawn maintenance and would be a little less steep. And then ultimately, the final grading plan will be reviewed and approved as part of the building permit process. So going into the conditional use permit, again, the proposed structure would be constructed with sidewalls of 16 feet, where 13, that's a typo, sorry, where 10 feet is allowed. So accessory structures may exceed this limit if they comply with the specific standards of section 1030.020 subdivision 5B, which, going through those standards, the proposed structure would be in conformance with the city regulations. A certificate of survey was submitted that identified all of the existing structures on the site, and it complies with the conditional use permit criteria outlined in 1070.020, and the proposed building would be compatible with the surrounding land uses. Staff has added a condition of approval, which is standard with all of these garage CUP applications, that they may not be used as a living space without first receiving approval for an accessory dwelling unit, and it can't be used for commercial uses without first receiving the proper approvals for the home occupation on the property. So I just wanted to add that note in there, that that's part of the approval for this application. So ultimately, staff finds that the proposed sidewall height complies with the standards outlined above, with the conditions outlined within the staff report. And at this point, we would recommend that you open the public hearing and take testimony, and staff recommends approval of the draft resolution approving the conditional use permit.
Thank you, Dwight. Do we have any comment cards regarding this garage CUP?
We do not, Madam Chair.
Okay. Is there anyone who is here who missed the opportunity to fill out a comment card and wants to make public testimony regarding the All-First Garage CUP? If you could just state your name and address for the record, that would be fantastic. Thank you.
Joe Lackner. I live at 22075, so if you put the map up, we're right across from the property, and we're right here. Yeah. So we've been here 10 years, and we've never had to deal with this. I don't see how a building, and as I say, I'm sorry, John, but every window we look out, we have to see this. And I don't see how a building of that size, in that location, why there's reasoning for it. If the building can be located maybe behind, where it's not obvious to us out of every window, I wouldn't, have concerns, and I wouldn't care what the size of the building is. But I don't think anybody would want to look at a building that size that doesn't fit in anywhere with anything. So, as I say, John, I'm sorry, but we've been here 10 years, and now it's changing to something completely different. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Is there anyone else? And I will give the applicant the opportunity to speak as well. So if there isn't anyone else who wants to make public comment at this point in time, I would make a motion to close the public hearing.
One second.
All those in favor, say aye. Aye. And anyone opposed? Okay, and the applicant is here, I believe, and so if you'd like to come up to the mic, that would be great. State your name and address for the record as well, please.
John
Thank you.
Alfers, 22085 Oakdale Drive.
Perfect. And you are welcome to say what you want in this spiel. We try to limit it to just a couple minutes, and then if anyone from the commission has any questions, we'll certainly ask.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, I'm open to pushing it back a little bit. I mean, I think if you pull up the survey, it shows it pretty much even with the front corner of my attached garage right now. I mean, I could push it back to starting maybe at the back corner of the garage there, as you can see that other point that's laid out there. But I wouldn't want to shove it back too far, because that would create, either I'd have to have a second driveway, I'd have to turn the whole building around. It just wouldn't work that well, whereas this, I can just make my driveway right into it, so.
Appreciate it. Does anyone have any specific questions for Mr. Alfers?
I think what I would recommend is some type of screening so that it's not so obvious to the neighbors. Unfortunately, that takes a while.
We can,
Is that possible to use that as a condition?
I think in Dwight's staff report, he did talk about, because one of the parts of the conditional use permit is just that it isn't injurious to the area. So it can be a part of it. I think we could consider whether it fits in the motion as a recommendation during the discussion. I don't know if that is a directed question at Mr. Alfers or not, but.
Are you open to?
Yeah, that's, we talked the other day, and we talked about possibly putting some pines or something in the front yard. That would, I guess, block his view of the building. I thought he was concerned about the trailers, so I actually tried to talk to Dwight a little bit about having the driveway actually go around the west side of the building, and I'd have a parking spot behind it, where I could put my trailers so that they would be out of view of everyone, and I could even create a berm with some pines or arborvitaes or something, or a cedar fence or something to hide those, so no one can see them, if that's the issue,
So there will be trailers parked behind the new barn also, or?
I mean, if that would take it away from being in front of the property, yes, then it would be out of sight of everyone. Which I don't know if I don't think, with talking to Dwight, I don't think I can do a driveway around that side there, as long as I obviously don't go over the property line, but.
Yeah, that's correct. We don't have a setback requirement for driveways. They can go up to the property line, but we want to make sure that they stay out of the drainage and utility easement.
Yep.
Does anyone have any specific questions? Otherwise, we'll let Mr. Alfers sit down, and then we can begin our discussion and make a motion for.
I'm not sure if there's a restriction in the the mapping or anything, is it more of a preference for how far back with the driveway set up, or is it like a site limitation?
Yeah, I mean, the further you go back, the more it drops too, in elevation. And I guess then I'd have to either have a longer driveway from the front and it'd be further away from the house, or I'd have to apply for a second driveway from the private road. I'm sure we wouldn't be able to put a road off of Oakdale. But either way, then that would incur quite a bit of extra cost, you know.
Good questions. Okay. Anybody else have a specific question? Otherwise, if there does one that, or is one that comes up, we can call you back up. But
Okay.
we appreciate you. So this would be the time to discuss if you wanted to add any landscaping or screening requirements. Otherwise, I just want to comment that again, this is one that I feel like, I just want to point out that the conditional use permits for the sidewall height, 16 feels really standard, 16 feet. And so I'm saying this more for, this has been something that the commission has asked over and over again, the ordinance be reviewed so that it is possible for it to be updated to match standards. So just bringing that up again because it is something we see frequently, and so that sort of lets us know.
And Madam Chair, there was a recent conversation with council a couple meetings ago where there did seem to be a general desire to figure out where we could maybe streamline some things and make things easier for some applicants, and that was specifically brought up. So I do continue to push that.
Perfect. Well, and not for our sake. I mean, this is what we're here for, but for the sake of the applicants that are requesting to build these accessory structures, it would make the process a lot more streamlined for you. So that is, but the reason I also bring that up is that really is the only deviation from what would be allowed as this landowner. And so the deviation is a 16-foot sidewall height rather than 10. So when you're just looking at it as straight ordinances, everything else fits where it's supposed to. So just bear that in mind. I guess that's what comes to the forefront of my mind as we have a discussion. I think it seems like the applicant has a desire to obviously make this fit well or fit better with the neighbors, and so there seems to be both a reason from sort of neighbors feeling like it's going to change their view, and then also a willingness to support some of those screening. So if we can kind of, if everyone feels like that is a direction we would want to go, then we need to just think about the language that we would want to have in the conditional use permit.
And I would say approval depends on having some screening from the front. And I like the idea of a berm also, because that kind of gives it an immediate screen where just planting a small tree probably wouldn't. So maybe we want to specifically specify that there's a berm with plantings, with spruce plantings or arborvitae or some type of screening.
Can we just say something as general as screening? Do we have to specify a specific direction?
So I would say deciduous, if the purpose of screening, it may be helpful to clarify that you're looking for deciduous. Am I saying
Coniferous.
Coniferous, sorry. Scatterbrain. But anyways, making sure that part maybe is more identified, and then, but I think the rest of it you could work with staff to identify a screening plan. My only question is, we're only hearing from
One neighbor.
And he also has frontage along the east side, so it may be also helpful to determine if there's any recommendation to include any screening along the east boundary as well for the property.
I just feel that from a conditional use permit standpoint, that's what we're reviewing is the sidewall height. I mean, the decision to be neighborly, that's, I feel, separate from the sidewall height issue.
Well, except for 16 feet is quite a bit more than 10, so it becomes a large building, and it's sidewall height, I almost wonder if we want to even include something about the building being located on the back of the property or screened from view, or that might start to get too difficult to enforce, but I do think a real big, tall, whole building with 16-foot sides is a big box. So, and I think the applicant did also, say that he would be willing to set it back a little further on the lot. It looks like there is screening on the west side, but those could be deciduous trees, so, even if you have a tree line there in the winter, you.
Yeah, I would agree, it does look on the west side, so I thought that, especially if we're saying he's gonna move the building back, does that push the need for any screening along the east side? But we didn't hear from those neighbors, so I don't know. That would be one clarification. When we say front, or screening from the front, technically they have another frontage on that east side.
Sure. Okay, and
Could we maybe include some level of discretion for the landowner on the screening, rather than setting, strict guidance on it? Just
Yeah.
that, the intention is to, can we be that loose with the language? Because it's not, what I'm trying to create here is a scenario in which he's able to do the things that he's already willing to do, but not being forced into things that are kind of outside of what might be within reason to him. Seems like he's not trying to just stick to exactly what the plan was out of the gate. Now that he's had this feedback, it'd be nice to give him a little bit of leeway in what he does.
I believe that we could say something as high level as that we recommend approval of the Ulfers Garage CUP with the addition of coniferous screening on the front and east,
So maybe say south and east.
south and east,
Yep.
instead of front. Okay, thanks for, I wasn't sure which one was north and which one was south, so I was trying to avoid. It doesn't have my little,
South and west, I think it would be.
There's already a tree line on the west.
Oh,
so the reason we're doing east is because of the,
open there to the.
so even if he finds as he's building it that it makes a little bit of sense to push it back, then it just becomes more visible to those homes, because now more of his current home is not blocking it. So I think that's why thinking of south and east. And so if that feels like a high level enough, then we don't have to be more specific than that. So that would be that. I am not making a motion, I'm giving the language for what could work. But if you are prepared to make a motion, you are welcome to.
And make a motion with the language that was just stated.
So a motion to approve the CUP, to recommend approval of the CUP with the addition of coniferous landscaping to the south and east of the garage.
And so then I would second. And so then all those in favor say aye. And anyone opposed. So then this becomes a recommendation for approval that goes to the council. So that is the next step.
So are you saying that it has to be on the east too? Or just if the neighbors think it's required? Because I have talked to both of them already, and they had no issues, but obviously I'm not gonna say anything here, but that's what they said.
So the recommended motion was to include some screening on the east and south. It didn't define how much. So if those neighbors are less concerned, I think you could do bare minimal plantings on that side. But this also isn't the final approval, it goes to city council. So that would be another option. It would likely be on consent, but that would likely be, you could write in if you are very opposed to that standard. Dwight can work with you to get that message to council. But the recommendation tonight would be to include some screening on that east boundary.
Would you take elevation into consideration? We're on a hill. Looking down, if you got a 16-foot wall, you're gonna have to put pretty big trees up.
So we will work with the applicant to develop a screening plan. I think would be the best answer that we can say at this time. We don't have a screening plan in front of us to evaluate.
Thank you.
And even if it doesn't completely block it or screen it, just breaking up that big facade is usually helpful.
does that answer your question in terms of having an opportunity so that if you, if it is, right, what she said, if it feels like too much to include both positions or both directions, then you can work with Dwight to make sure that that council's aware. Perfect. Okay. So then we are moving on to the next item, which is Wiseman Garage CUP. And so I think we're going to start with the staff report.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, item 6C is the Wiseman Garage CUP. This is a request from Alan Dorney Construction, Minnesota, who is requesting the conditional use permit on behalf of the property owner to allow the construction of an accessory building that would exceed the allowed accessory sidewall height limit of 10 feet in the front yard. The subject address is 7938 Maple Hill Road. This is an 11.47 acre property that is zoned urban reserve and guided for low density residential. The property is surrounded to the north, west, and south with properties that are zoned urban reserve and then guided also for low density residential. And then to the east is a property that is zoned public, institutional, and is guided for public / semi-public use. That would be the Brush Creek Golf Course to the east, just for extra context. Natural characteristics of the site: the 2040 Natural Resource Inventory areas identifies as medium quality wetland on the northern quarter of the property, but the proposed structure is not located near that area. And the property is located within the MUSA, but is located in the third stage of the 2040 staging plan, so sewer and water are not available to the property at this point. For location and setbacks, the minimum setbacks for accessory structures in the urban reserve district are 50 feet from the front property line, 20 feet from the side, and 15 feet from the rear. The closest property line to the proposed structure would be the property line to the east, which is about 80.3 feet away. So the structure more than comfortably meets all of the setback requirements. Properties that are over 10 acres in size are allowed to have a cumulative accessory structure footprint of 3,969 square feet, excluding the first 1,000 square feet of attached accessory structure space. But they also have the option to exceed that footprint through a conditional use permit. The property currently contains one attached garage, which has a footprint that's less than 1,000 square feet, and a detached garage that has a footprint of 1,940 square feet. And the applicant is proposing an additional detached garage that has a footprint of 1,600 square feet, which would bring the cumulative accessory structure footprint to 3,540 square feet, which would be allowed for a property of this size. The proposed structure would be constructed with sidewalls that have a height of 12 feet, where a maximum height of 10 feet is allowed. Property owners have the opportunity to exceed this limit through a conditional use permit, and that's what the applicant is applying for tonight. And the overall height of the structure is about 20 feet and does not exceed that 35-foot height limit for the urban reserve district. The proposed structure would be constructed with galvanized wick steel siding and roofing. The performance standards within the zoning ordinance allows for metal siding and roofing through a certificate of compliance, provided that the materials meet the Minnesota State Building Code and have been treated with a factory-applied color coding system that protects against any fading or degradation. The applicant has provided documentation confirming compliance with these requirements, so a certificate of compliance will be issued as part of the conditional use permit. And this structure also contains eaves and overhangs that exceed the minimum length of 12 inches. The proposed plan appears to show that water would be able to drain away from the proposed structure on a grade that is 3 to 1. So a condition of approval is that these grades be revised to a slope of 4 to 1 or less to allow for better lawn maintenance of that slope. And the final grading plan would be reviewed and approved as part of the building permit. So going into the conditional use permit, accessory structures that are constructed with the sidewall of 12 feet, where 10 feet is allowed, may be approved through conditional use permit, provided that the standards in section 1030.020 subdivision 5D are met. And staff has gone through those conditions in the staff report, and I have a quick summary of them on the slide here, so I won't go through all of them. But staff finds that the proposed sidewall height complies with the standards outlined above with conditions outlined in the staff report. So at this point, staff would recommend opening the public hearing and taking testimony. The staff recommends approval of the draft resolution of the conditional use permit.
Thank you, Dwight. At this point in time, we'll open up the public hearing for the Wiseman Garage CUP. So if there's anybody here who wants to make public testimony regarding this agenda item, we invite you up to the podium at this time. And since no one is making a move, I will make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. And anyone opposed? Okay, and then is the applicant here? Awesome. Would you like to take a moment to come up to the podium, state your name and address, and then...
I'm Daniel Tuzano with Allen Doherty Construction, 7840 Main Street in Fridley, Minnesota. I don't have anything to add to this. I just came if anyone had any questions.
Thank you so much. We appreciate it. When applicants are here, that's certainly helpful. Does anyone have any questions for staff or for the applicant? My only question for staff, and it is really just because it came up twice tonight, but the grading on the plans is 3-to-1 slope. City recommends 4-to-1. Is that it's an engineering correct recommendation? And so I'm just curious where the difference lies, like why the desire to build with a steeper grade, maybe from an architectural standpoint, at least when the drawings are put up, and it's really just because I'm curious.
That's a good question. Maybe the applicant can speak to that, but I don't know if there's a strategic advantage for them to have a slope that steep, but from an engineering standpoint, it does create for some more difficult conditions to actually maintain the grass that's growing on that slope. So city policy is to have slopes that are 3-to-1 or less.
Okay.
Sorry, 4-to-1 or less.
Thanks. That was the only question I had for staff. Does anyone else have any additional questions?
Could we have that applicant comment on that?
If you would like to, do you want to comment on the grade?
The grade, I think is just what the surveyor put on there.
Oh.
You know, so I mean, it's just,
Easy enough.
but yeah, I mean, less of a slope would make it easier, and it's just what the surveyor did, so.
Great.
Okay, so at this point in time, being that it is a similar issue, or similar CUP, we're familiar with the process, and so if there isn't any discussion that needs to take place, I'm happy to recommend, make a motion to recommend approval of the Wiseman Garage CUP.
Second.
And all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, and then anyone opposed? Okay, so that will be a recommendation that goes up to council then.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. And we move on to the fourth new business item, which is the Lindbergh Accessory Dwelling Unit CUP. And Dwight, you're up again.
Back up again. Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, item 60 is the public hearing for Lindbergh Accessory Dwelling Unit CUP. So this is a request from Heidi Lindbergh for an approval of a conditional use permit to allow the construction of an accessory dwelling unit, or ADU, that would exceed 960 square feet. The subject property is located at 8301 Strahler Road. This is a 39.6-acre property that is zoned rural residential and guided for rural ag residential, and is surrounded by properties that are also zoned and guided for those same uses. The 2040 Natural Resource Inventory areas identifies a medium quality wetland on the southwestern corner of the property. That wetland delineation was conducted in 2020 for the construction of the house, and was recertified as part of this application, and confirmed that the proposed location of the ADU would not conflict with that, with those wetland areas. And this property would be located outside of the MUSA and would be serviced by a septic and well system. So setbacks for ADUs in the rural residential district are required to comply with the principal structure setbacks in that district. So that's 50 feet from the front and 25 feet from the side and rear property lines. The proposed structure is located in the middle of the property and comfortably meets those setback requirements. Properties that are over 10 acres in size are allowed to have a cumulative accessory structure footprint of 3,969 square feet, excluding the first 1,000 square feet of attached accessory structure space. The property currently contains one attached garage, which has a footprint less than 1,000 square feet. The maximum floor area of ADUs, however, in the rural residential district are 960 square feet, but property owners have the opportunity to increase this limit to 1,200 square feet through the CUP process. The applicant is requesting approval of a 1,200 square foot ADU through the CUP process. And I just want to make a note, in the staff report that you guys received, the plans included an ADU that had a footprint of, or floor area of 1,233 square feet or 1,223. And the applicant has since submitted revised plans that show that floor area at 1,200 square feet flat. So that is allowed on this property. And I apologize, I believe this screenshot is from the last slideshow, so that's not accurate. So I apologize for that. The proposed structure would be constructed with sidewalls that have a height of 9.25 feet, which is allowed in the front yard of this property. And ADUs are required to have a height that is shorter than the principal structure. So in reviewing building permit records for the principal structure of the property, the height of the principal structure is measured at 21.5 feet, and the height of the proposed ADU is measured at 18.3 feet. So the height of the ADU does not exceed the height of the existing home and meets that requirement. There are architectural standards for ADUs. They are required to incorporate similar style, color, and material as the principal structure. And again, going through the building permit records for that principal structure, it was constructed with hardy panel smooth siding with batten strips, 4-inch exposure lap siding, hardy panel, smooth, and asphalt shingles. The proposed ADU would be constructed also with that hardy board, batten siding, and asphalt shingles. Staff has reviewed those materials as well as the overall design of the structure and find that the proposed materials and design are consistent with the materials of the existing structure. And this ADU would also contain eaves and overhangs that exceed the minimum length of 12 inches. The grading on this proposed plan appears to show that water would drain away from the proposed structure and would ultimately need to be reviewed as part of the building permit application. So there are specific CUP criteria for accessory dwelling units to have a floor area of over 960 square feet. And I can go through them kind of briefly here, but they are detailed more in the staff report. But the applicant is proposing just one ADU, which is the maximum amount of ADUs on the property, so that's allowed. The detached ADU meets all the principal structure setback requirements of the district and is clearly incidental to the principal structure. The applicant has submitted revised plans that contain a floor area of 1,200 square feet, which is the maximum allowed floor area for ADUs, and the exterior design of the ADU incorporates similar styles as the principal structure. The owner has stated that she intends to live in the ADU while her family lives in the principal structure, and that there would not be separate ownership of the principal structure and the ADU. The ADU does provide 2 off-street parking stalls that would not conflict with parking of the principal structure, which is, again, another one of those requirements for this request. And as a condition of approval, the ADU would be required to have the same street address as the principal structure with signage clearly identifying it as apartment 2 or unit 2, and then the principal structure would have to have signage clearly identifying it as Unit 1. And then height of the proposed ADU does not exceed the height of the principal structure. And then, of course, conditional use permits have to meet the conditional use permit criteria of section 1070.020, and staff finds that this proposed ADU complies with that criteria. So at this point, staff recommends that you open the public hearing and take testimony, and then staff also recommends approval of the draft resolution approving the conditional use permit.
Thank you again, Dwight. So at this point in time, we will do just that. We will open the public hearing. No comment. Do you have a comment card for this?
Not for this
No. Okay. So if there's anyone who is here to make public testimony or public comment regarding the Lindbergh ADU CUP, now would be the time to approach the podium. And since no one is joining us in that way, and we only take in-person comments, then we will make a motion to, or I will make a motion to close the public hearing. That's what we're on. All right, that was a second by Kazuki. So all those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
And anyone opposed? No. Okay, I'd like to give the applicant the opportunity to come up. If you would like, there's no requirement, so you don't have to, but if you would like to address the commission, you're welcome to join us at the podium.
I don't have anything more to say than what Dwight said.
Perfect.
Just wanted to make it clear though that we did send that revised square footage plan.
Okay, so then if anyone has any specific questions, we would call the applicant up, but otherwise we can just move into, if someone is prepared to make a recommendation, I encourage you to just jump right to that point, but if there's some discussion or questions that you would like to ask, who would like to begin?
I don't see anything wrong with it. I mean, it's a beautiful plan that you have. Nice place to live.
I'll
So
make them.
sorry.
No, you have
Just one question I have. You have to, it can't be sold separately. It has to have the same address, just a different apartment number, but it could be rented out, correct? I mean, you can be rented out.
As long as you obtain a rental license, then yes.
I'll make a motion to approve the draft resolution.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
And anyone opposed? So then that recommendation for approval will go to council and they ultimately will make the final decision. Thank you for joining us this evening. Thank you for being here. And then that takes us to the last item on, of new business tonight, which is the Karenini Orchards preliminary plat. And is that you again, Dwight?
That is correct.
Correct. All right, you're gonna start us off with a staff report.
Just waiting for the presentation to open.
No problem. We'll all reset. We'll give these folks a minute. Thanks. Have a good night. Just by way of clarification, for those who might be curious, it is only in the rural residential where you can have an ADU in the front yard. Is that correct?
Correct, and,
Just because it is a unique feature, right? It
Yeah.
almost looks like
Yeah.
you're adding a development right, but you're not.
Which would be a way to kind of,
so actually I wanna take, you know what, I think maybe in the urban reserve, you could have a big
As
front
well,
yard too.
okay.
I have to look at this, if you remember off the top of your head.
I believe it, in the urban reserve, it can be in the front yard,
Okay.
but the urban reserve doesn't grant property owners the opportunity to go up to 1,200 square feet.
That's the one that
Strictly
maintains
limited
it
to 960.
to 90.
Yeah.
And then I guess just since we're, well, it is just a question only for me. Does the garage suffice as those additional parking spots on an ADU? Because not all ADUs have garages, but if an ADU has a garage space, that would, they don't have to have separate parking outside.
Correct,
They
they either
just
need a
happen
large
to.
enough driveway or, yeah,
Perfect.
there's a couple different ways to meet that requirement.
Awesome. Sorry, I should have asked those earlier. All right, we're ready.
All right. Yes, the last item under new business tonight is item 6E, Karenini Orchards, which is a preliminary plat. This is a request from Alipa LLC, which is requesting approval of a preliminary plat to allow the development of Karenini Orchards. The subject property is located on the farmland surrounding 20400 County Road 30. This property is zoned rural residential and guided rural/ag residential. The proposed development would consist of 7 residential lots and 1 outlot on 61.03 acres. And the property is located outside of the 2040 Metropolitan Urban Service Area, so it would be serviced by septic and well systems. But just for extra context, that 2040 MUSA boundary actually runs along the eastern boundary of the site. So right along the east here is that MUSA boundary. So the subject property currently contains 7 development rights, and the applicant is proposing use of all of those rights through, for the creation of 7 single-family lots. The plat is also including the creation of a single outlot located to the north is facing to the right, so this would be the south eastern corner of the property. This outlot would not be buildable due to its size, the existence of that stormwater basin, and accommodation for the street to align with Duffney Drive to the south. So lots in the rural residential are required to meet the minimum lot area requirements of 2 acres, minimum lot width requirement of 200 feet, and minimum lot depth of 300 feet. All of the proposed dimensions in this plat meet those minimum dimensional requirements. And in the chart to the right shows the minimum setback requirements. I apologize if your text is pretty small, but it's a lot of information to fit into a single table there. But I tried to highlight things in green if they met the setback requirements, and highlight them in red if they didn't. The proposed building paths in all of the lots appear to meet all of the minimum setback requirements of the rural residential district. This proposed development would construct a paved north-south public street that would grant access to all of the 7 new lots, and would ultimately align with Duffney Drive at the intersection of County Road 30. Since this new street is connected to a county road, access is subject to all the applicable county requirements, which may include the installation of turn lanes. And in their memo, the county had provided a recommendation that turn lanes be installed, but it was unclear whether that was a recommendation or a requirement. So that's something that will need to be clarified before the final plat, and that's something that the applicant would have to comply with as part of this development. The plat's also identifying a future east-west roadway between Block 1 and Block 2, where my laser pointer is. And this would serve that parcel to the west as it redevelops in the future. As part of a condition of approval, staff recommends that a roadway stub be installed at this location so that it is clear that a future roadway is going to be coming off of that location. In 2024, wetland delineation was conducted that identified 5 wetlands on the property. And since that delineation, the property has gone through 1 division, and so since that division, 3 of those wetlands are still located within this subject property that we're reviewing today. And wetlands are regulated by the Wetland Overlay District, which includes buffers, monuments, and a 15-foot structural setback. All of the wetlands are classified as medium quality, and a condition of approval will require the applicant's surveyor to certify the buffer widths and comply with the buffer width requirements of medium quality wetlands. And as part of the wetland buffering requirements, the buffers are required to have monument signs posted at each time a lot line crosses a wetland buffer, anytime there's a contour of the buffer, or any interval of the buffer that exceeds 200 feet. Staff has reviewed the proposed signage and found that it mostly complies, but there is a missing wetland buffer sign between lots 4 and 5. So a condition of approval would be that be updated so that missing sign is addressed. And then, as a condition of approval, a wetland buffer establishment plan would also be required. Going into the landscaping requirements, for a subdivision, 1 overstory tree is required per dwelling, and no more than 33% of the required number of trees can be of the same species. The applicant has provided a landscaping plan, which is shown on the screen here, but it did not specify the species, so a condition of approval would require the plan to be revised to identify the specific tree species for each lot. And then, as part of the final plat, public safety will review the potential need for an overhead light at the entrance of the development. Each lot contains a perimeter D&U easement, which is consistent with city policy. However, there is a need for a revision on Lot 6, Block 2, so that there is a D&U that fully encompasses the 100-year flood elevation on that property. Going back to Outlot A, there is a storm water basin located on that property. However, it's unclear who would be in charge of maintenance of that stormwater pond. So as a condition of approval, the outlot would either need to be maintained by a homeowners association or subject to a deed restriction assigning maintenance responsibilities to one or more of the lots within the development. So staff will continue to work with the applicant to ensure responsibilities are established very clearly before the final plat is approved. And at this point, staff would recommend that you open the public hearing and take testimony. Staff recommends approval of the draft resolution with conditions of approval as outlined in the staff report.
Thank you, Dwight. At this point in time, we'll open up the public hearing. Is there anyone here to make?
Madam Chair, we did receive a card
Okay.
for this item from
Excellent.
Gary Ort. So
Thank you. We invite you up to the podium. State your name and address for the record, please.
Hi, my name is Gary Ort. I own both 20600 County Road 30 and 20550 County Road 30, which adjoin to the property in question. My big issue is with the drainage plan. There's 33 notes from the engineering firm with issues with the drainage. All of that would run down onto my properties and hurt my ability to use my properties because of the excess water from the lack of drainage because of the buildings and the road surface that are impermeable. I just want to make sure that all of those are fixed and okay. The other thing I have an issue with is there's a trail permitted or on the plan that would run, and on the 2030 comprehensive plan that would have to run through my property based on following that plan. So by approving this plot, is the city going to eminent domain part of my properties? Is that what like the plan is going to be then, or what's going to deal with that trail? Otherwise it dead ends on both ends of the developer's property. I'm all for having 7 homes. It looked like the rest of the plan is fine. I just want to make sure that like my property isn't harmed by building these. And I think that it would be with the way the plot currently exists.
Is your property to the east or is it?
To the west. So if you go back to the map, I can point out both of my properties.
Carve out there?
So I have the 2 properties that are L's inverted to each other. They were originally part of the Kruger addition and split at some point in the 70s. And I've owned the left parcel since 2017. And I purchased the right parcel for my parents to live in January. And right now, the way the drainage plan would work is, may I approach the map?
Yep, absolutely.
So all of his drains and the ponds have to run uphill currently in the way his plans are, so it doesn't make sense. It would run down this ditch and into this culvert crossing my driveway and flood my driveway at the point where the Y is, and also flood this swale that runs to the north fork of Rush Creek that runs along my property edge. Right now in the spring, those floods are unusable, but for the rest of the year, they're usable. With the extra impermeable membrane, I'm not sure that they wouldn't dry, and there's no environmental assessment or anything of that with this development plan to make sure that my property doesn't flood and that I don't have a risk to either of my homes or my shop. And I'd like that fixed before this gets approved. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have anybody else? I will give you the opportunity to address the,
So, whoever
is the applicant.
is the applicant.
Yep. I am familiar.
Okay.
Thank you for coming. So at this point in time, then I will make a motion to close the public hearing.
I'll second.
All those in favor say aye. Aye, and anyone opposed? Okay, and then we would like to invite Mr. Chiarini up to the podium. If you would like to address either the questions or just the commission, you don't have to, but you're welcome to. Otherwise, if we have any questions, we can certainly call you up at that time.
Yeah, if you address the question about eminent domain real quick.
Yes.
It's a real easy one.
Yes.
We will not be pursuing eminent domain as a city. At this point, we're trying to, we're planning more for there to be a connection to the east, to the regional trail system, if your properties were ever to redevelop in the, whenever time. Absolutely, so whenever those were to be redeveloped, that would be likely when a trail would go through. I am confident that the culture in Corcoran is to avoid eminent domain at all costs, and there certainly wouldn't be a trail that would trigger that decision. So,
Mr. Chiarini, did you want to come and address? Perfect.
Yeah, thank you, commissioners, staff, and for other comments. I'm Nate Karanimi, 20795 Larkin Road, Corcoran. And there's I think one, just to address the concern that was already raised, it doesn't show on this map here, but there was the Parks and Trail Commission did recommend a trail plan that might look a little bit different than possibly what, I don't know what you were envisioning, but.
Well, what's on the city packet is what I saw.
Yep, yep.
Went around the wetland and then it connected to the north, but there wasn't a good connection to the north.
There was no connection to the north and there's no connection to the southwest, but on the 2030 city plan, they have a proposed trail that runs along the wetland edge and then follows the creek through my property out to kind of the 30, on the 2030 plan on page 95.
And that is a loose, like that is supposed to cast a vision.
that line marker is what our public works director would call it. So essentially, with Hope coming in 2 properties over to the east, we've started a trail system, and the regional trail system for Diamond Lake. The property in the middle we have not seen a development proposal on, so we're trying to set up the trail here to connect to the eventual trail system for when that middle property between Hope and this property comes in. So correct, there wouldn't be a connection tomorrow, but there would be a connection in the foreseeable future to the trail system.
And that would be the Diamond Lake Regional Trail?
Yes, yeah, and the city has a local trail, but ultimately that's the connection we're trying to get to, yes.
I guess the comment or possibly also the question I have for the Planning and Zoning Commission is that the Parks and Trail had kind of heard out our alternate plan to have the ultimate trail be all the way across on the other side of the wetland. Just to, for a lot of different factors. One is you're not plowing through sensitive wetlands, which can be just, very difficult for obvious reasons. But I think the other possibility is that the property to the east seems much more likely to develop and ultimately offer a trail connection at some point in the future. The properties to the west, I know Carl, your neighbor immediately next to you, and it sounds like from what I just heard now, probably not looking to do any type of, development or have any sort of trail, and it sounds like eminent domain is not a policy that's been considered either. So I think it's highly likely that trail connection comes from the east. And one thing I was going to ask is that would the commission have any preference, or would they be open to making that trail, the new trail as approved by the Parks Commission, making that an easement rather than making actual trail improvements that don't, at this point, they don't connect on either end? So I'm sure there's pros and cons to that, but from my viewpoint, if it's unclear where that trail connection might come in, I mean, it could come in on the southern portion of that property, along the county road. We see, there are trails, like along County Road 19, it runs right along the county road. I doubt the trail ever comes up from the north, because there's an established neighborhood up there. But I could see at any point along that, that, I don't know, 900 foot border, someday a trail connection could come in. And I think, and I'm not an expert on these matters, but I think in that case, if the easement were there, the city could use the property that they want to use, and then vacate, the remaining easement that's no longer needed. But, so I guess that's something I'm asking about, is that, and I don't know if this is the right place to bring it up, or if there's another way to have that considered. But I really like the trail plan. I think the trail plan, there was a lot of thought put into it to make it a much, so the overall concept is just that, it's a concept. But this was an actual plan that considered a lot of different variables. But would they make that a trail easement rather than making a trail with improvements on it? So that's a question that I had.
Did you want?
Does not in the planning commission's purview.
I did not believe so, because that
The
defaults
Parks
to
and
Parks and
Trail
Trail.
already made a recommendation, yes, so, and I believe their recommendation was to build the trail now as the staff's recommendation. So, we can work with the applicant, or this will likely not be on consent for city council, so that would be the next venue for that to be fully fleshed out.
Yeah, so that falls under the, discretion of the Parks and Trail, so not our purview, but, you would have an opportunity to address council before they, officially, vote on the plat. So you'd be able to raise the concern or the question about, making it an easement versus developing the trail.
Okay.
And so staff would let you know when that item is coming up on the council, and so just, prior to that, that's when you would have the opportunity to, bring that up before council.
Is that something that I should bring up, prior to the council meeting? Or is it something that is handled in the meeting itself?
No decision would be made outside of the council meeting, so, you could certainly reach out to the council members. Their emails are all public information, and maybe that helps them have that context going into that discussion. But like Natalie said, this item is probably not going to be on consent, so there will be council discussion to some degree, and that would probably be the best opportunity for you to bring this concern or this idea up. So, and then we can discuss that further at that point in time.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, that, as to the water question, I just know water is always a question, and I know there's got to be a professional engineer that's signing off on all this. It's way above my pay grade, but Otto Associates, certainly that's within his qualifications. And so if there's, I didn't know if there's anything else I could address on that, but I don't think discharging water runoff in the wrong direction is certainly not part of my plan. So.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
And
Yep.
can I just add one
Absolutely.
point of clarification for the comment that was made? There are 33 conditions in the grading and stormwater section of the engineer report that would have to be abided by before the preliminary plat is fully approved. So that would be something that would have to take a pretty decent amount of work to address, and I believe a lot of the concerns that you are raising are handled through those 33 conditions, but I can certainly get you in contact with the engineers who would be reviewing that a bit more thoroughly if you'd like.
So what he's saying is those are conditions of approval. So even if the recommendation is for approval, those conditions are all attached to it. So just wanting to verify that your concerns are shared, I believe, by engineering right now and would be addressed.
So that where the filter farm is uphill, the outlet farm will be fixed, because right now the preliminary plat has it flowing uphill from the outlet to the filter basin, and then the other one on, I think it's lot 3, is not connected to the filter basin at all.
I think
What we are mostly looking at is compliance with ordinances and design standards. So that's primarily where we are. And the beautiful thing is that a lot of eyes look at this before, like lots of people and people who are experts in their areas. We just know ordinances and the design standards. So the only, and this is not, because this application, as it comes in, meets all of the standards, and so therefore, I think it's pretty clear that it needs to be recommended for approval. There isn't a variance, there isn't any sort of deviation. The only pause that I had, and I think that I don't know that there's a way to address this, but because it does run right along that MUSA line, my concern is that there will be just 2 lots over a multi-family housing unit, and then these larger lots. And I don't know, and this is not an application. It just feels like it feels disjointed a little bit in terms of planning. And since our purview is planning, I don't know that there's a way that we could impact that in any way. But it feels to go from a multi-unit housing development to a 40-acre plot within a close proximity. And I guess my concern would be is the potential, that's a 2040 MUSA line. There's lots of murmurings that it's not going to change. There's murmurs that it might change. And so I guess my concern is ultimately for the future residents living in these plots, just being aware of their unique location within the city. And because the land that is zoned for that some of it commercial and then the high density multifamily housing, just that and I know that lands on an individual's responsibility to be aware of where they're purchasing, but that's just ultimately my concern. I don't know that planning has the ability in any way to make that feel less disjointed.
How about when that land in the MUSA is developed, if there's some kind of a screen on the western borders, does it screen that high density development from this lower density?
Yes.
We do have, there was the additional screening requirements put in when you have one type of land use abutting another. So there are unique screening requirements or sort of buffer. I think we called it the buffer.
Yes.
I remember the buffer.
Buffer yard requirement, but you're right, so it's gonna be really dense along this corridor, County Road 30 on both sides. There's gonna be a combination of commercial, we have a business park district on the northeast corner of 11630, and then we get to Hope, which has the medical office space that they're trying to target, the multifamily buildings, townhomes and villas, and then to directly east of this proposal is mixed residential, so that'll likely be a combination of apartments and townhomes, things like that. So it will be done. And that to Commissioner Kuzic explained, there would be that buffer yard requirement along the west boundary based on our current ordinances to provide some separation for these lots. And then I would say, as far as rural density goes, a lot of these lots are closer to that 2 acres, not all of them.
It's just that one.
Yeah, so they are more on the denser side as far as rural residential goes, before it starts getting to some larger lots from there. So it does provide a smooth transition. It is sharp because that line is basically suburban density versus rural density, which is suburban is overall average of 3 units an acre versus 1 acre for one dwelling for every 10 acres.
And I don't want to lead us down a rabbit hole, but I find it interesting that the boundary for that distinct edge is not a roadway.
Roadways can be great separators, but yeah, at this time it is not. That is not something that was identified. The roadways are more of an east-west connection rather than having a north-south separator.
Okay, and then my last question, and this is because it's in the hands of the counties for the turn lanes, so this has approximately similar density to what is developed across on Duffney. But because it's going to line up, are they looking at not just number of homes, but also like current traffic on that road? Is that, like, I know that that's the county, and like, I don't mean for you to speak to their job, but I would assume, so when Duffney was developed, there was not the requirement of turn lanes. But it isn't solely just density that they're looking at, they would look at, like, number of cars also traveling on 30, hopefully?
I would imagine so. The county is not really transparent on everything that goes into their recommendations and requirements. And maybe they're transparent, but I think some of their decision-making processes are in the middle of changing, so it's a little hard for staff to kind of guess where things are gonna land right now. But I believe that would, as far as when proposals come in, they do usually talk about traffic volume, and they also consider the density too of the proposal, or at least they did previously.
Okay. Those were my questions, or just comments regarding it, but otherwise, I see that it matches the development standards for the lot.
I'm happy to add a comment if appropriate. On that, so on the previous plan that was there in 2023 was under the OS&P standard.
Yeah, with the 16.
Yep, correct. And this was the feedback I received. Now, this was over a year ago with the county, but I don't know how quickly counties change. Their feedback was that in this type of situation, if it's under 10 residential lots, they don't, because there's minimal volume turning in there, that they would not require turn lanes. And then anything over, and that's, so if there's 100 cars turning in there or over 10 cars turning in there, then they generally would require turn lanes. So that was just, at least that was the feedback that I had received at that
Yes,
time.
that was the previous, that's what I'm saying.
That's
That was
insightful.
That was
Okay.
the previous policy, and now they seem to
Maybe.
be having some different decision processes.
Okay.
So I don't know that that's what is holding true at this time. That's one of the points of clarification that staff's working with the county on.
Perfect.
And if
Okay.
that changes, is there an easement on the property, that lot 1, that would allow room for a turn lane if the county required it?
So the half right of way,
There's
That
enough.
outlot would be the way?
As part of the proposed subdivision, the applicant is dedicating right-of-way along County Road 30. My understanding is that that would be sufficient for a turn lane to be installed there.
Okay, do you guys have any other comments, questions, clarifications?
The only other question I had was about the parks and trails, but maybe not the place to.
please feel free to ask questions. It's just more making a recommendation on the trail aspect, and that's outside of the purview.
Because in here, it had stated that it was gonna go along part of the wetland, and then it was gonna cut through, it said it would follow a portion of the wetland complex before turning east along the shared property line between lots 4 and 5, block 2, crossing the proposed public street and continuing north along the eastern boundary of lot 6 before stubbing toward the adjacent farmland to the east. Is that is accurate still?
Yeah, I'm doing a rough sketch, if you can switch over to my screen, of what the developer's rough sketch of the alignment was. And so, yeah, it would follow a small portion of the wetland before cutting up. I'll switch to my laser pointer. So a small part of the wetland before cutting along the shared property line of lots 4 and 5, and then crossing the street before continuing north along the east property line, and then ultimately connecting to the east to that property when it develops in the future.
So that would be on Karenimi's property there?
Correct.
On the property that's being built?
Correct.
Where does it go to the west? It just kind of stops there.
For now, I would stop there. That would, the continuation of that would depend on future development. So.
Quick question. Sorry. Is there I don't know what the plan was before for that, and again, sorry for rabbit hole if this is the case, but was there ever a plan for that yellow line just to run the creek and then take that bend along, like, to the edge of that tree line, set like east down there, and then just connect at County Road 30? Go straight along that edge of the
The original alignment is kind of shown in this red markup that was shown in the comprehensive plan, and was ultimately going to run along the wetland to a city-owned parcel on the west side of that wetland complex, and would connect to the north through the neighborhood on Hillside Drive. But staff forwarded a recommendation to the Parks and Trails Commission that it would be more logical to have the trail cut along to the east to connect to the farmland to the east rather than cut through an existing neighborhood.
So there's basically three alignments. And so there's the comp plan alignment, the staff adjusted alignment, had it going east instead of having it go north, but still had it following that creek for the most part, because where we can, we want to follow natural resource corridors. And then the developer and Parks and Trails Commission recommendation is in yellow. So there's some disagreement on that point. Yep. And council will
Shake it up.
Yep.
I don't know if this is not part of the plan, but is there that possibility if there were to be a decision to run it in between to the County Road 30, like straight south along the edge of the property line, or is that not?
So that would fail the intent of getting it to where we're trying to get it to go to the west.
Gotcha, okay.
Yeah.
But it never will when it's on my property.
And that's fine. The city can wait 100 years to get it. But whenever the development comes in, that's when we would get that further. But right now, we're more focused on trying to get it to the east for access to that trail system to the east.
Hopefully that Diamond Lake Regional Trail won't be too far off.
Yeah.
It's a nice trail to have. Well, I guess I would like to recommend that we approve the preliminary plat with the condition outlined in the report.
You making a motion?
I'm making a motion.
Second.
All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
And anyone opposed? Okay, so then that recommendation for approval will go up to council, and if you would like to check with staff, or they will let you know when it's supposed to be on the council's agenda, so you would have an opportunity to attend the meeting, but then also prior to that, if you want to raise the issue of easement versus actual trail, that would be the time to do it. Thank you, I really appreciate you coming in and joining us tonight and sharing your concerns. And staff after the meeting will make sure that they give you the telephone number of the individual so that you can have assurances of the grading and water issue. The next thing that we have is the opportunity for any questions regarding the planning project update. Commissioner or council member Camp is not able to join us tonight, but is always available on if you reach out to him via phone. So if anyone has any particular questions for him, that would be a way to get a hold of him, always available. Or if anyone has any questions for staff. No?
Yep. Maybe Dwight, you can help me out with because I had an issue getting the agenda. But I don't have my email set up or something, I don't know.
And also know that Dwight is available, and then just a reminder too that Deb Johnson, the city clerk, is always available if you want to reach out to her.
Yeah, she's the one who,
Yes,
I
yep.
have her card.
And she is very helpful.
I don't know if something changed, because I was getting it, but I think you guys were sending an email with the agenda to our regular emails.
Oh, okay, so it's a city email.
Yeah, so now you're probably not doing that anymore, and I think I have to make sure I know where to get it.
No problem. We just, in talking about the commission liaison, so the commission liaison calendar is in there, but the one thing I want to talk about before we get to there is Commissioner Lind was the co-chair for the planning commission, and so being that she's no longer on the planning commission, just in the back of your mind, be thinking, not this meeting, we will wait until everyone is here, but we will at some point in time want to make a decision about a co-chair or a vice chair, I guess they would call it, for the planning commission. And it does sound like we will have a May meeting. And will the May meeting be where we plan to do a little bit of training, or it depends on how full?
Yeah, I prefer to wait for a meeting where everyone's going to be there, so if there's a chance that we won't have everyone, then we might postpone it, so it might be a really quick meeting in May. So.
Okay. Otherwise, the commission liaison calendar, did Dwight fill you in on just sort of what it is? So it used to be a requirement that someone from the commission came. Now it's just a recommendation, and we just, we still put commissioners' names on there just so that we're cycling through, but you're welcome to attend as many as you want. So wherever you see the blanks, you could just insert your name. It's just a rotation.
To attend city council.
Yep, to attend the city council meeting and just be able to hear what's taking place in sort of, yep. Okay, anything else that I am missing or forgetting? Will we just take July, I'm sorry, I'm planning the whole summer. So I'm just like, do we want to look at July and say, do we have any sort of holiday rearranging in July for a meeting?
So, the Thursday meeting would be the July meeting would be Thursday, July 2nd. So it really depends on whether or not we have a quorum. So if we have 3, or if we think we would have better luck rescheduling it to Tuesday, July 7th, that would be the alternative. I think staff, neither one of us have a vacation planned. I think the 3rd we have off, so we would be here for the 2nd. So.
Okay.
4th is on Saturday, so.
Yeah.
We don't need to make a decision now, but if you maybe just come prepared in May, it would help, because then obviously it's more beneficial to let applicants and the rest of everybody know ahead of time. So just look at your schedule and have that on your radar, and we can talk about that in May. Otherwise, that is all we had for tonight, and so I will make a motion to adjourn tonight's meeting.
I'll second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 All right, and we are adjourned.